Concuñada demanded bridal glam treatment, threw a tantrum at my wedding when refused, and stormed out with her husband. I, 26F, Latina, just got married to my husband Liam, 30 male, and although our wedding was overall beautiful and magical, a situation involving my sister-in-law left me feeling conflicted. I'd appreciate your perspective. So here's the deal. In my culture, there's a distinction between a cuñada, sister-in-law, like your husband's sister or your brother's wife, and a concuñada, which in English would be something like a sister-in-law, the wife of your husband's sibling. Let's call mine Camille, 27F. She's married to my husband's older brother, Mark, 32M. My actual sister-in-law Sophie, married to my brother, was there too and saw everything unfold. Side note: Sophie wasn't part of my bridesmaids, but she was included in the morning of the wedding for makeup and hair cause we are a lot more closer and cause she asked me for a place to get her makeup done at least 2 months prior to the wedding, and I have the GF of one of my bridesmaids cancel, but her spot was already on the contract, so I told Sophie she could be with us. Besides that, my brother couldn't make it to the wedding and I didn't want for her to feel alone. A couple of months before the wedding, I stayed in North Carolina with my father and mother-in-law and one of my brothers-in-law, Jack, 27. I don't have many friends there and we were living in a retirement community, so I spent a lot of time at home. Camille and Mark also live in NC but farther away, and since I don't drive and I'm not familiar with the area, I didn't invite her over. That said, on previous trips to NC, I did try to connect with her and help her with things I know are important to her professionally. We're not close, but I always try to be cordial and respectful. The day before the wedding, we had our rehearsal dinner after walking through the ceremony logistics. BTW, the wedding was in my home country. I wasn't really doing formal introductions, just saying hi to some of my husband's friends I hadn't met and introducing him to a couple of my bridesmaids. Camille wasn't a bridesmaid, but her husband Mark was one of the groomsmen. My sister-in-law Sophie later told me Camille was visibly upset, that no one had introduced her properly, and that she looked uncomfortable all night. She wasn't alone, though, she was with my in-laws. Later, Camille and Mark showed up late to the rehearsal dinner. It was raining, so that was understandable. What caught me a little off guard was that Camille arrived in athletic wear and a very bright rain jacket. The event had a formal vibe, even if not fully black tie yet, but I figured maybe her clothes got wet or she was just caught off guard. No big deal. The glam squad situation. That night, as we were all saying goodbye, I reminded my bridesmaids about our morning schedule. That's when Mark asked my husband Liam if Camille was coming to the hotel to get ready with us. Liam asked me, and I said no. We had a glam team hired with a contract and a specific headcount. And to be honest, Camille and I had never had a conversation about her getting her hair and makeup done with us. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I didn't think she'd want to spend money on separate glam either, mainly because I've been told, though I've never witnessed it myself, that they sometimes ask my father-in-law to pay for parts of their trips. For example, in this case, I was told Camille went to my father-in-law insisting he book the Airbnb immediately after New Year's or else she would charge it herself and invoice him later. My father-in-law often gives in because he doesn't want to cause any problems. That night, things escalated. Mark and Liam had a heated conversation where Mark said things like, if my wife isn't welcome, then I'm not welcome either, and that he, Liam, and Camille needed to talk, just the three of them. Without me. Which I found kind of absurd, because we're talking about the morning of my wedding. Why would my husband have a closed-door meeting about it without me? The morning of the wedding, my Mill texted me the night before saying she'd be with Camille the next morning. I replied kindly that it wouldn't be possible. I told her the schedule and the glam team were locked in and that I didn't want her caught in the middle. I asked her to let Liam talk to his brother directly. That morning, my Phil, one of the groomsmen, and Jack came to our suite to bring pastries and coffee. They mentioned Mark was possibly not going to the hotel because Camille was so upset. Just to be clear, Mark was never not going to the wedding. He was just thinking about skipping the prep at the hotel and going directly to the ceremony. Our photographer was arriving soon, and I didn't want this turning into a big thing. I told my wedding planner to let Camille know that if she wanted to come for the photos, she could. Glam wasn't an option at that point, but I was trying to meet her halfway. My husband also talked to her to say we were waiting. She refused. She had been crying for hours before the ceremony even began, and even at the place of the ceremony, also mentioned to Jack she was not going to wear makeup cause she'll be crying all day. And when the ceremony started, she was visibly furious. She looks absolutely miserable in every single photo. The reception, our wedding was black tie mandatory, and Camille wore a turquoise North Face rain jacket over her outfit. It clashed with the entire aesthetic and stands out in all the photos. During the reception, my brother-in-law Jack, our best man, gave a beautiful speech about our relationship and called me his best friend. Camille cried throughout the whole thing, but not in a sentimental way. Then she disappeared. We had arranged a special dish for her because she has some food restrictions, and I was worried someone else would accidentally be served her plate. I asked my husband where she was and he said, she went to the bathroom, but the bathroom was on the opposite end of the venue. Then Mark left to find her. When I asked the wedding planner to check on them, she said they were fighting and Mark told her they'd be back in 5 minutes. She gently reminded them this wasn't the time or place. An hour later, they left the wedding without saying goodbye to us, only to my in-laws. They missed the dinner, the dancing, and everything else. So, Ida for not including Camille in the bridal prep? Update 1. Before anything else, I want to clear up a few things. The distinction I made between sister-in-law, Concuñada L and sister-in-law, Concuñada, wasn't meant to justify treating anyone better or worse based on cultural norms. In Latin American cultures, we simply use different terms for different kinds of relationships. But that in no way means anyone deserves less respect. I was genuinely surprised that some people use that clarification to insult my culture. I'd really encourage people to be more open-minded. Misinterpreting something doesn't give anyone the right to belittle where someone comes from. That clarification came up because, during a conversation between my husband and his brother, I was called a bad sister, as if I were the sister of Camille, when in fact, I'm not even her sister-in-law. I'm her concuñada, which loosely translates to sister-in-law, meaning I'm married to her husband's brother. Now, the real update: my husband and I read all of your comments together, and honestly, it was incredibly comforting to realize that we didn't do anything wrong. We never intended to exclude anyone. Planning a wedding is a massive task with so many moving parts, and it's easy for small things to feel bigger than they are, especially if there's no open communication. Looking back, we really feel like a lot of this could have been avoided if Camille's husband had just spoken up earlier. He knows her best, how she reacts, what makes her feel left out. He knew well in advance that he would be getting ready and taking photos in the suite with the rest of the groomsmen. Camille was, of course, invited to be there too, but if that wasn't comfortable for her, we could have easily included her in the hair and makeup schedule had he talked to us sooner. That conversation could have happened months before the wedding. Later, my husband and I talked about how, in the end, it probably wouldn't have mattered. We realized she might have found something else to feel hurt or upset about. Not having matching pajamas with my bridesmaids, not being in every single photo, having to pay for her own hair and makeup, or even that we were mostly speaking Spanish in the bridal suite. We came to this conclusion after learning about other situations in the past. For example, on my youngest brother-in-law's birthday, she got upset that he chose a restaurant with no safe food options for her due to her allergy, and insisted he change the location. I completely understand that severe food allergies are serious. I have one myself, though not as intense. But it was his birthday, a once-a-year event, and it would have been okay to eat before, after, or even bring her own food. There are many ways to adapt without making others feel bad on their special day. There were also stories of past family trips where plans had to revolve around Camille's suggestions, because if not, it led to tears, tension, and frustration. I want to emphasize something here. I do admire that her husband always defends her. I think that's the right thing to do. You back up your partner publicly, always. Private conversations come later, but being united is important. Another situation Camille and Mark reminded my husband is how they went out of their way to accommodate my husband's ex at their wedding, while Camille wasn't included in ours. But that simply wasn't true. His ex was invited because she made the wedding cake, and by that time, they weren't even together anymore. My husband traveled from very far to be at that wedding and never once asked for special treatment for his +1. I also saw people say that Camille had no one to be with on the morning of the wedding, but actually, we had other family members there who would have been more than happy to spend that time with her, warm, lovely people who welcomed everyone with open arms. But apparently, according to her husband, they weren't close enough family. She's also not particularly close to my in-laws, or to my other brother-in-law, or my husband. And frankly, she's not close to me either. So at that point, I honestly don't know who she does feel close to in the family. And that's where my husband and I realized, this whole situation was just messy. But it's okay. We can't control how others act, only how we respond. And next time, we'll be clearer about boundaries and expectations from the very beginning. We did everything with good intentions. And I believe, with my whole heart, that if someone truly wants to be part of your joy, they will find a way. And if they're looking for a reason to be hurt or upset, they'll find that too, no matter how much you try. Update 2. So, about the aftermath, and the surprises that keep rolling in, well, readers, buckle up, because I would never have guessed the wedding drama was just the beginning of a truly wild chapter. After Liam and I got back from our mini-moon, which was, thankfully, drama-free and full of piña coladas, fresh seafood, and the glorious absence of family group chats, we finally had to face the fallout. The first sign that things weren't quite over came about 3 days after we landed back in the States. Someone, and let's be real, my money is on Mark, sent out a truly epic family group email with the subject line of "Family can be a circle of support, or not." Cringe, right? Liam read it out loud and I thought he was reading a spam message at first. In it, Mark wrote a whole treatise about the meaning of inclusion and how small decisions can create rifts that last generations. He never mentioned names, but the references to the pain of being left out when family milestones are celebrated were not subtle, and he made sure to highlight how not every culture is welcoming, which felt like a very pointed dig at my family, who, for the record, welcomed everyone with open arms and filled them with more food than any of them could handle. I'll admit, at first, I was pretty crushed, but then my phone absolutely exploded with messages from Sophie, my ride-or-die Sil, Jack, and my mother-in-law. Bless her heart, my Mill actually texted me saying she wanted to make it clear she was grateful for how smooth and loving everything was, and then, because of course family politics, she asked if I could let the dust settle and not reply to the group chat. So, I didn't. But of course, Camille wasn't done. About a week after the group email, I started noticing we were mysteriously untagged from several family Facebook albums. You know the wedding hashtag? Yeah, Camille deleted every photo with me or Liam in it from all her socials and started posting her own story, elaborate multi-paragraph captions about feeling invisible and finding strength through adversity. She even posted a blown-up, unflattering dance floor pic of herself and Mark, in which she's wearing the infamous turquoise raincoat, and captioned it, "Be the rainbow in someone else's cloud, even if they don't see it." The subtlety was not subtle. Here's where things took a truly unexpected turn. Because apparently, this struck a nerve within the family, just not the way Camille intended. Jack, our best man, reached out to me with a question. Did I realize Camille had privately messaged nearly everyone who attended the wedding, including some of our friends, and all my aunts, about how she'd been cold-shouldered and erased? Yeah. She told everyone a wildly different version of events. She actually told 3 friends of mine she was supposed to be the maid of honor, but I changed my mind last minute because she wasn't Latina. What? Also, my maid of honor was my cousin Paula, who has been my BFF since kindergarten and baked my birthday cake since I was 12. To make things more colorful, my parents, who up to this point were completely drama-averse, finally asked if we could clear the air. I braced myself for an intervention-level sit-down, but instead, my dad handed me a printout of Camille's social media posts, in Google Translate Spanish, mind you, with little highlighting and sticky notes. "We may be old school, but we are not blind," my mom huffed. "Is this woman okay?" They were actually worried about her. That's when I realized something really big. People saw through all of it, from every angle. You can wear a raincoat and cause a scene, but it's not the outfit that makes the wedding warm. I thought, okay, this is the peak. Except. Nope. About 2 weeks after the wedding, guess who DMs me? Camille herself. I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes before showing it to Liam, who immediately goes, "Well, this isn't going to be boring." The message was long, but the highlights: she never imagined her family would treat her like a stranger. Again, we are literally family-in-law, but okay. She said she was disappointed, but not surprised, given all the little oversights of the last few years. She explained her turquoise raincoat was a symbol of how it feels to be an outsider expected to blend in. And, most bafflingly, she said for the good of the family, she thinks it's best if we remain civil but distant, unless and until the people who hurt her sincerely apologize. Y'all, she wanted an apology. If you think my next move was to compose a long, heartfelt apology, you would be mistaken. Instead, after sitting with it for a couple of days, I wrote back, politely, because my mama raised me right, basically, that I was sorry she felt left out during what was supposed to be a special day for everyone, but decisions weren't meant to exclude anyone. I also said that I hoped, in the future, we could find ways for everyone to feel comfortable, but that weddings are complicated, and sometimes, miscommunications happen. Her reply? A single emoji, the praying hands. At this point, I honestly thought that would be the end of it. And then, the family group chat pinged again. Mark and Camille announced, in what might be the most classic Camille move, that they were taking a break from family events for their emotional health. It was a short message, and politely worded, but it was clear: no birthdays, no holidays, and definitely not Jack's own upcoming engagement party. This caused a chain reaction. My Phil finally, for the first time, called a family mediation Zoom, which, funny twist, Camille refused to join, stating it was too soon to expect accountability. So, there we were, on a 3-hour video call, discussing boundaries, expectations, and, for a solid 30 minutes, whether sending out Google Calendar invites for family parties counts as being exclusionary. This was mostly my Mill's suggestion, because she is determined, bless her, for everyone to feel the love. Jack, ever the peacemaker, offered to make a doodle poll. My parents asked if someone could include them by WhatsApp, and my cousin offered a group playlist, post-Zoom. The effect was this: the rest of the family was more united than ever, and honestly, I'd never felt more seen as part of this mishmash of loving weirdos. Memories of the wedding came up, funny stories, people laughing over how my uncle switched up the dance floor playlist, tears about emotional speeches. Yes, people mentioned the turquoise incident, but it became shorthand for family drama we can actually get through. Even more wild? Jack and Sophie got engaged a couple weeks later, and specifically asked me to help with their wedding plans, especially any Google Calendar and raincoat-related emergencies. Liam and I, meanwhile, are planning a big dinner at our place, no formal outfits, raincoats welcome, vegan and gluten-free and everything in between. My Mill is bringing pastries, Paula is doing everyone's hair, and Sophie's already cracked a joke that the real family tradition now is group chats, drama, and laughter. Here's where we stand: Camille and Mark are still on family sabbatical. But, as the family group chat now says, thanks, Jack, boundaries make the heart grow fonder. And honestly, I'm good with that. It's not picture perfect, but it's real. Update 3. Buckle up, because, apparently, My in-law soap opera wasn't done with us yet. For the first few weeks of family event Sabbatical, everything was eerily peaceful. The rest of us hung out, swapped pictures, made inside jokes about rainbow windbreakers, not in a mean way, just if it rains, where turquoise has become code for expect the unexpected, and, miracle of miracles, my husband and Jack actually coordinated a guy's hiking trip. Meanwhile, Team Camille and Mark kept radio silence, no group chats, no Facebook cryptograms, not even an emoji when Jack and Sophie officially set their engagement party date. Then, out of nowhere, right as I was getting comfortable thinking the drama was behind us, Camille unblocked me and sent me an wth. Not to a family mediation, not to a group therapy session, no, a crowdfunding campaign linked to a wellness retreat for women who feel like outsiders in their own families. I nearly spat my coffee. At first, I wondered if she'd mass emailed everyone. She hadn't. Sophie and Liam never received it, but then a friend from the wedding group texted me asking, "Who is this?" Turns out, Camille had DM'd several of my cousins, my best friend Paula, and, this absolutely blew my mind, a couple of the Glam Squad stylists who'd done our wedding makeup. The invite included a 12-slide Google slideshow about the invisible pain of being left out and testimonials from what seemed to be, judging by profile photos and handles, her work acquaintances. The retreat, set deep in the Appalachians, cost $600 for a weekend of nourishing sisterhood, nature therapy, and radical acceptance. Let's just say, this sparked a second, much funnier round of family group chat memes. But things also escalated in a way I never expected. Because one person did express interest, my gentle, no-nonsense cousin Claudia. You know that cousin who's the first to comfort you after a breakup, but will also tell you, point blank, when you're being a fool. That's Claudia. She saw the wth, noticed Camille had quoted her own wedding toast, "May we always make space for each other," as part of the promo, and, God bless Claudia, she RSVP'd yes just to see what on earth was happening. Fast forward to the retreat weekend. Camille posts a series of Instagram stories, tea circles in a yurt, painting rainbows on river, stones, a letting go bonfire, with, yes, turquoise jackets encouraged. Claudia features in exactly one group selfie, looking both awkward and amused. The next week, Claudia FaceTimes me to debrief. It was enlightening, she says, deadpan. But mostly, I spent the breakout session talking to a woman who was mad her sorority sisters preferred brunch to kayaking. Camille apparently ran a circle of trust and, at one point, told everyone she had faced a culture of exclusion from the moment she married into a family with their own language and customs. Claudia, of course, gently pointed out the groom's side was equally outnumbered and that every family has quirks. According to her, the whole gathering eventually degenerated into a session about how to unfriend gracefully online. So, did I end up with a retreat convert? Not really. But Claudia did return with two things, a rock painted with a turquoise spiral, which now graces our kitchen as a paperweight and running joke, and the distinct impression that Camille's feelings, while real, are uniquely theatrical. Just as we finished giggling over this, the next wedding event rolled around, Jack and Sophie's engagement party. For weeks, Mark sent the group chat increasingly ambiguous messages, "We'll see. If family healing is prioritized, perhaps we'll make an appearance." Sophie wasn't up for any more games. She told Jack, "Look, your brother's always welcome, but we're not putting the party on pause for drama. Day of, there's a palpable buzz. Will they come, won't they?" People start making bets with their drinks. And then, right during the champagne toast, the door opens and Mark arrives alone. The collective reaction was pure sitcom gold, everyone suddenly hush, then whispering. Jack, heart of gold, always, sweeps over and gives Mark a huge hug. Mark's first words, "Camille sends her best but she's nurturing herself at home." It is, honestly, the best possible outcome. The evening is fun, drama-free, and Mark, perhaps for the first time, seems able to relax, talking with his brothers and dancing like he hasn't in years. Later, he quietly tells my husband, "I just wanted to be here for you all." Progress. Meanwhile, Camille posts a moody, rain-dappled window shot with the hashtag #selfcaruins. Now that the temperature has dropped and the holidays loom, another twist, my father-in-law's birthday. For the first time in family history, he decides to throw a potluck, his way of inviting everyone with no pressure. The rule, bring what you love to eat. Jack brings empanadas. Sophie bakes an extravagant vegan cake. I whip up my mom's chili rellenos. Mark brings an elaborate cheese board. And texts, last minute, that Camille isn't up for gatherings but asked everyone to read her poem, which she's emailed to all of us. Her poem, which, I admit, I read with genuine curiosity, turns out to be a not-so-subtle, metaphor-laden riff on being a turquoise fish among gray stones. My in-laws, aiming for kindness, read it aloud. When someone offers a toast to finding your color in every crowd, people clap, and then move on, more celebratory and united than ever, despite, or maybe because of, the mishaps and metaphors. It's been a wild stretch, but here's what's lasted. The family drama has become less volcanic, more silly weather. People are supportive but no longer enabling. Mark visits solo. Camille is somewhere living her best rainbow life, and that's honestly fine. The younger siblings joke that at future family weddings, there will be a ceremonial coat check, turquoise jackets included, and an open invite for poetry, dance, and good-natured ribbing. Who knows, maybe at a future event, Camille and I will finally have a glass of wine and a real conversation. Or maybe she'll send a care package of outsider merch. But for now, the drama is contained to group chats and humorous family lore, and the kitchen paperweight reminds me, even the wildest, messiest families can build something beautiful, and, occasionally, hilariously weird, together. Update 4. This is not an update I ever thought I'd be writing. But sometimes, just when you think the turquoise storm cloud has finally blown over, life throws one more bolt. If you're still reading, pour yourself a cup of coffee, or a big glass of wine, no judgment, because things took a turn I could never have predicted. Buckle up. So, after the Turquoise Poetry potluck, you'd think we were done. Mark started showing up solo to family hangouts, always polite, always smiling, making small talk about his job and fantasy football. For a while, I wondered if he'd ever mention Camille or the wedding again. He didn't. We all tiptoed around it, acting extra normal, wondering privately if Camille would ever reappear or if we'd receive another round of cryptic, rain-jacketed email blasts. And then, the holiday season rolled around. I was co-hosting Thanksgiving, my first time ever. To my surprise, Mark RSVP'd, "We'll be there, count me in," but, you guessed it, Camille is still pursuing her self-care journey. Great, no drama. Right? Wrong. The day before Thanksgiving, while I'm trying, and failing, to master my mom's dulce de leche pie, my phone buzzes with a call from an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore, but for some reason I answered. Static. And then, "Hi, this is Kira, from Home and Harmony magazine. Is this my name?" I'm confused, but say yes. She launches into, "We're working on a feature about multicultural weddings and contemporary family dynamics. We'd love to interview you about your unique experience." I freeze. Wait. What? I've never contacted any publication. I'm not an influencer, just a girl who likes to over-document her family's WhatsApp group. How does this magazine know our story? And then Kira drops the clincher, "We've been speaking with your relative Camille. She shared some of her essays about embracing difference through adversity and mentioned your wedding as a case study of cultural traditions. She also linked her recent women's retreat as part of the narrative." Guys, my jaw genuinely hit the floor. I played dumb, thanked her, and gently said I needed to think about it. I hung up and immediately called Sophie, who howled laughing, then clued me in. Camille had, without bothering to mention it to anyone, pitched a personal essay to a real magazine about being an outsider by marriage. In her draft, she described arriving at a grand wedding in a rain-soaked, alien country and being graciously permitted to observe from the margins. She painted a dramatic story, foreign tongues, culinary confusion, and, direct quote, "a photographic record of isolation, every smile a ripple on the surface of deeper currents." I was somewhere between flattered, furious, and dumbfounded. The journalist said she wanted my side, and, after venting to Liam and my best friend Paula, who wanted to email Kira a 30-page essay of her own, I realized, this was my chance to set the record straight. Now, normally, I'd run a mile from this kind of drama. But, how often do you get the chance to turn real wedding mess into light, instead of just gossip? So I emailed Kira, thanked her, and, shaking like I'd had 10 espressos, hopped on a phone interview. I told her all about our family, about rain and food and group dances and the odd tension of planning a bilingual wedding with in-law expectations. I skipped the nitty-gritty on glam squads and turquoise jackets, focusing instead on what it actually felt like to bridge two backgrounds and try to make people feel at home when you're juggling your own nerves. I got real. I told her about how hard it is when someone shows up to your joy with their own sadness you can't fix for them. How exclusion sometimes isn't intentional, how sometimes you miss signals, and sometimes people don't actually want inclusion, but special treatment. I said, sometimes family isn't about seeing eye to eye, it's about learning to laugh, and forgive, and make space, even for the drama. 2 weeks later, Kira emailed me an early draft. She'd interviewed Jackie, one of our groomsmen, my mill, who gushed about her wonderful daughter-in-law, even with jet lag and pastry fires, and, because this is how families are, Claudia, who told a story about turquoise as a symbol of forging your own path, and also, of not being afraid of mismatched aesthetics. Camille's essay, to my surprise, made the cut too, but, for the first time in her voice, there was, if not a change of heart, then at least a note of humor. She wrote about being the hurricane at someone else's sunshine parade but admitted, honestly, if I didn't like drama I wouldn't have worn outdoor gear to a black tie wedding in the first place. When the story went live, it was, actually beautiful. Real. Tangled. Messy. It went semi-viral in our social circles, and, to my horror, my mom distributed it at church. There were only a handful of pointed comments. Most people simply nodded and said some version of, "This is family." Even Camille, after weeks of silence, texted me a peace sign and, I kid you not, a picture of her turquoise jacket, newly thrifted to someone else. And here's the strangest part, this didn't bring Camille storming back into our group chat, nor did we suddenly become besties. But the energy shifted. Mark, clearly relieved, started joking about, hey, at my next family event, I'm wearing a high-vis vest just to one-up Camille. At Christmas, my dad toasted to all the colors in the family. And Sophie gifted me, with a wink, a set of matching pajamas for every woman in the family, including Camille, plus a turquoise scrunchie in case anyone wants to disrupt photos. With style. We're not fixed. We're not perfect, but for the first time, I think, I actually heard Camille laugh with us, on a Zoom call, not at us, at an in-joke about coats of many colors. She's not joining every party, and I don't expect her to. But for the first time, it feels like our family weathered a hurricane and, rather than rebuilding exactly the same house, just pitched a bigger tent. So, that's the latest. Did everything heal overnight? No. Did anyone apologize? Not in so many words, but did we all get a little better at saying what we mean and laughing at what we can't change? Yeah. In fact, last week, my mill announced the theme for next Thanksgiving, Come As You Are. Bonus points for bold jackets and open hearts.